Gistory is a news startup that aims to provide complete, concise, and contextual news. We believe at Gistory, in order to know the news better, you need to know you need to know the location of where the event is happening, and also to understand the context to a news event, without which it's hard to follow a news story. So before I actually go ahead and tell you a little bit more about Gistory, I'm going to tell you how I came about with the idea for Gistory, the inspiration behind the startup. I was born and raised in Mumbai, and I came to Columbia, Missouri for my education. So I've been living between Mumbai and Columbia for the past 6 years. And no matter where I am, which part of the world, I always talk to my parents. And my parents are artists by profession, but unfortunately, that's the only similarity between them, because my father keeps himself updated with what's happening in the news, and my mother, on the other hand, believes that if she follows the news, that will kill her creativity. But since I have a background in journalism, no matter whenever I call them, we end up talking about some event, some news story that happened. And every time I talk about something that interests me in terms of the news, after I finish talking about the entire event, my mother will always ask me, but how did it start? And this is a question that I've been asked several times, not just by my mother, but a lot of people in my social circle. Since I'm a journalist, they assume that I would have the answer to that question. And out of that frustration of people not being able to follow the news, I identified 3 reasons for people's lack of engagement with the news. One is their unfamiliarity with the backstory. They don't understand the context to a news event, because of which it's hard for them to follow the updates of the news today. Secondly is that we're also busy. We don't have enough time to go online and search for that context. And thus it becomes harder for us to follow a news story. And thirdly is our lack of geographical information. We don't know where on the map the news is happening, where those countries are, which is an impediment for us to understand the news better. So after identifying these 3 core problems, I came up with the tagline of complete, concise, and contextual. I believe that if the news is complete, if it is concise, if it's written short, in a short way, in simple language, and it provides all the contextual information that somebody needs, it's easier for people to engage with the news and to keep themselves updated. So that was the idea behind Gistory, and why I thought that I needed to found this startup. But after the idea comes the execution part of it. And last year, I was actually in DC. I was working with Al Jazeera English, and I was contemplating whether I wanted to work full-time or I wanted to come back to school, because at that point of time, I had quit my master's and I was working as a fellow in DC. And I really was not motivated to come back to Columbia, but I received an email from Professor Jim Flink, who teaches at the journalism school, and he told me he was offering a class in emerging technologies. And technology and innovation are things that I'm really passionate about. I'm interested in seeing and learning about what's happening in the industry and how news and the digital media can keep up with the technology. And I looked at the course that he was offering, and I told him, I was like, I'm definitely interested in this. This is something that I'm so passionate about. But I told him, I said, I'm going to come back to school on the condition that I won't do any of your coursework, I won't take the exams, I won't do the classwork, but on the other hand, I want to work on this startup, this idea that I have for this startup. And I promise you, at the end of the semester, you will have a product that you will be able to evaluate. So, you'll be able to judge whether I actually done the work for the semester. And he was on board, and he said I could do it. And so I came back to Columbia, moved to Columbia with the hopes of working on Gistory while completing my master's on the side. So when I came back here, I realized that in order for me to bring Gistory to life, the most important thing was I knew that when I started Gistory, and at that point, Gistory, we didn't even have the name Gistory. We were just using a working title. But I knew that this startup, the core points for this startup was that news had to be on a map. We should be able to map the story so that people know where exactly that story is unfolding. The second part of it was the target audience, that I knew that the target audience were people between the age of 16 and 40, which is still really, it's still very general, but I wanted it to be for a younger age group. I knew that the the startup had to be responsive on handheld. People should be able to pull up the website on their iPhone, on their iPad, as well as being able to access it on their desktops. And most importantly, I wanted the readers, the audience, our users to be the center of Gistory. I wanted them to be able to determine what they want to read, what they're interested in learning about in terms of the news. And the core of Gistory is actually the story briefs, because all of our story briefs are written in really simple language, language that can be understood in a conversational tone. All our briefs are a maximum of 750 words, so they're really short. They're between 500 to 750 words, and so it doesn't take a lot of time to update yourself with what's happening. All the briefs are written by local contributors, and they use sources that are not international. They use sources. They use local journalism sources. And lastly is that you can read the story on the map and you can understand the location of the event. So I knew that those were the important points of Gistory: the audience, the responsiveness, the story briefs. And that was the easy part of it, actually, having this idea. But the next two important questions were that how am I going to make this happen? How am I actually going to bring Gistory to life? And why would people use Gistory? What features can we include in this news site or this platform that people would choose Gistory over the other options that we have out there? And so in order to tackle those two main questions, I moved to Colombia because I realized that I would have better access to resources here, and I would be able to apply for funding. And after I created the prototype for Gistory in my class, we actually presented to RJI, and they gave us our initial seed funding to build Gistory. Secondly is that I knew the idea behind Gistory, but the tough part was that how am I going to ask contributors to write for Gistory when we don't even have a site? When we started Gistory, when I had this idea in September 2014, when I moved back to Colombia, we were just 4 people on the team. It was me, Femi, and Aleks, who were helping me build the site, and Avery, who was helping with the design. So we were building this prototype. And so how am I going to get these contributors to write for Gistory when they don't even know what it looks like? And the idea for Gistory is so radical that it's hard for people to even visualize how the site would look. And the third thing is that I knew I needed to put together a the team that would help me bring this vision to life. And most importantly, I needed to create a brand for Gistory, a brand that would be appealing, that would make news attractive for a younger audience. And so those were the things that I dealt with when I moved back to Colombia. And in order to do that, in the beginning of this year, after we successfully created the prototype and presented to RJI, I put together a team of 10 people currently that constitutes the core team of Gistory. And we have people that are helping with the website design, that are helping with creating the website, the editorial side of it, the business, the marketing, the social. And this is the team behind Gistory that has helped bring this idea to life and is responsible for helping Gistory engage with its core audience. I'm going to hand it over to Avery now, who is the director of design, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about us developing a brand for Gistory.
Thank you, Zahra. So when Zahra first came to me in September, all she had were those original starting points that she mentioned. Complete, concise, contextual, on a map. We have a young audience. How can we make this brand work? So she told me to look at sites like Mashable and BuzzFeed, which are really popular. People read them every single day, and they share lots of content. But also to look at sites like the New York Times, which are very trusted sources of journalism, and how to merge those sites together along with the best attributes of Google Maps and Wikipedia. So it was kind of like a really big idea to try and figure out how to represent that very quickly. She said one of the great things about having like no parent organization, we're all young, we're doing this, we're all excited about it, is that we can break all of the rules. So she said, like, traditional news websites are basically like a digital newspaper. You open a story, you turn the page, it's the same thing. We're doing it differently, so don't look at the traditional way that a news site works. Instead, we're going to do this all based on location. When you first come, you're going to see the map, you're going to be able to see those visual connections between events, and in that way, have these new ideas and new ways to perceive the news in the world around you. So we had to come up with a name. We didn't even have a name when she came. when she came to me in September. So we tried to pull together some terms that could communicate that quickly. In the name Gistory, we tried to combine the concepts of GIS plus history, so the background of the event, and giving you the gist of the story. And finally, I had to actually put together the brand. So one thing I did was optimize all of the colors for the screen. This is not going to be anything we need to print. This is all going to be viewable on a screen. And then with the addition of the tagline, "No News Better," we were all set to begin the foundations of actually creating the site itself. I worked quite closely with all of our web developers to ensure that Gistory would be extremely visible as far as news goes. So this foundational brand controls everything that we do in terms of what we look like and how we do it. I'm going to hand it over to Katie now, who is our Director of Audience Development and Engagement, to tell you a little bit about that.
Hey everyone, so kind of when you're starting up something, of course, we're building this great website, but we're trying to figure out how do we get people to come to it? How do we build this audience? And then after that, how do we engage them? How do we keep them coming back to Gistory? So those were kind of the two main questions that I was posed with. So when I was thinking about different strategies, I thought about our target audience and what we already know about them. So we know that they're on their phones a lot. Yes, they do use desktop, they use tablet, they use mobile, and they use these in a variety of different ways. We also know that they are on a variety of different platforms, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and that they use each platform for a little bit of a different purpose, but with the same purpose of connecting with others. We also know that time is a big issue, and so people may not have a lot of time to put into researching background context. We wanted to make it very easy for them, and we also know that people really like things that are visually appealing, so things that stand out against other things on social and other things on the web. So coming up with that, I came up with a 4-step strategy. A lot of this was kind of pre the launch of Gistory, which launched about last month. So the post that I have kind of fell into 4 different categories. So we first introduced the brand. So what is Gistory and what can you expect from us? Then we had a series of posts that kind of made us more transparent, kind of who's behind that orange G. We had posts about anticipation, so leading up to our launch as we were preparing our content and preparing our website, reminding people that we're still here and getting people excited. And then once our website launched, we have content graphics, so we're incorporating the content from our briefs into visually driven posts to engage people and to drive them back to our website to view our gists. So this is an example of one of our first kind of introductory posts. We pair something that's visually compelling that tells a lot about what we try to do as a media organization with a witty one-liner. And so we were thinking that combination would make this stand out on a news feed and then get people excited, get them to interested in us, following us, excited to see our content. The second series, this is an example of what I like to call transparency posts. We did a series called Meet the Team, and so every one of us on the team, we had a headshot taken, we had a graphic made of our role and where we're from, and then also in the description we talked about something about the team member as a person. So for example, Zahra used to want to be a pilot, and so that was up there. And so in doing so, we kind of let people know who we are and kind of where we come from, but also it was great in terms of brand awareness, because when people were tagged on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, then their networks were more aware of Gistory, and it got us some more attention as well. This is an example of one of our anticipation posts, and so this was the day before we launched Gistory, and so just reminding people that we're here, we're coming, come back to our website tomorrow, and we got a bunch of comments, as you can see, of people excited to come check it out. And then this is an example of one of our content posts. So we had a brief on the Boston Olympics bid and kind of what that entailed, what even an Olympics bid entailed, period. And so this kind of shows, you can see there are the Olympic rings. It tells a little bit about the story, and then they say, hey, you can come find the answer to this on gistory.co. And so those are just a couple of examples of posts that we've been doing. We've also been doing outreach on other platforms. We had a post go viral on Tumblr, for example, people who were interested in maps and those kinds of visual things really liked the interface of our website. So, kind of as we keep going, we're continuing to build on these, especially with the content posts. And I'm going to hand it back to Avery.
Yeah, so really quick about that interface, we have this scalable across platforms. So I worked very closely with the web team to make sure that this brand and the visuals were constant, whether on your phone, your desktop, your laptop, your tablet. Gistory scales across all of those. And we were right in thinking that people would be coming from all different types of devices. So we've had like a really good split of people coming from mobile and tablet as opposed to desktop. And finally, Zahra, I'll let you talk about our future plans a little bit.
So we have a lot of future plans, but the three main things we want to focus on as we move ahead is that we want to expand our social engagement. We want to improve on how we engage with our audience. So doing different things on different social media platforms and experimenting with that. We want to create a contributor infrastructure so that people can submit story briefs to Gistory much more easily. And we reduce the time between the brief coming from the contributor, worked on by the editor, and then being published. And we want to continue evolving our site features. We want to include more things like the ability for people to be able to comment on the brief. And we've been working on several iterations of Gistory, and we continue to build it. So every time as we move ahead, we continue putting more features into our site. You can find Gistory on you can find Gistory on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Pinterest, and other social media platforms also. And you can pull up the website gistory.co on your desktop, on your mobile, or on your iPad, and look at how it looks, see the interface, play with it, and don't hesitate to send us feedback.